Let's be honest here. The Super Mario franchise is weird. An Italian plumber from Brooklyn taking mushrooms, fighting turtle dragons, rescuing princesses. It's all just pure surrealism, and we are here for it. With that said, some elements of the Mario games are undeniably weirder than others. I'm Kifinosi with One Up Binge, and today we're going to be looking at the weirdest, most bizarre thing from each and every mainline Mario game. So let's start at basically the beginning with the original Super Mario Bros. There's no better place to start off this list than with one of the most famous glitches in all of gaming, the minus world. There are a number of ways to access this fabled stage from World 1-2, all of which take advantage of the game loading its assets improperly to send Mario to a glitched copy of World 7-2. Once there, he's unable to leave, as the warp pipe at the end always sends him back to the start, trapping the player there until they either get a game over or just reset the console. Even this world's name is the result of a glitch. It's actually supposed to be World 36-1, but the game displays a blank space in place of the number 36. The minus world is so well known that it's been routinely referenced elsewhere in the series, including in Super Paper Mario, where World -1 is apparently a nickname for the Mario universe's equivalent of hell. Seeing as it's an endless, inescapable loop that dooms all those who enter it, we'd say that's appropriate. We're not just here to talk about glitches, though. The two wrong warps of the lost levels were very much intentional on the part of the developers. They flipped the script on players looking for secrets, punishing them by sending them back to a previous world. Worse, because there's no going back to the left in this game, if you stumble across one of these wrong warps, you'll have no choice but to accept your fate. The one in World 3-1 at least grants you the small mercy of a bottomless pit next to the warp, so you can choose to lose a life instead of losing all your progress. The only way to escape the warp in World 8-1 is to let the timer run out. The Lost Levels is packed with features like this, designed to catch experienced players off guard, but these trick pipes, they're just downright mean. On a lighter note, we now move on to the whimsical world of Super Mario Bros. 2. Everyone knows by now that this game didn't originate as a Mario title, but what we don't often consider is the number of series regulars that debuted here. Instantly recognizable enemies like Shy Guys and Bob Oms made their first appearance in Mario and Friends' adventure in the land of Subcon, as did the egg-spitting dinosaur Birdo, who would go on to feature alongside Yoshi in numerous spin-offs. Although the game may not have been designed with Mario in mind, Doki Doki Panic truly left its mark on the franchise. Rounding out the classic NES trilogy, we've got Super Mario Bros. 3 and the strange case of Kuribo's shoe. One of the rarest power-up items in the series, Kuribo's shoe appears only in World 5-3. It can be obtained by defeating a Goomba hopping around in the shoe, and once Mario claims the item for himself, he can jump around the level safe from any spikes or munchers. What's extra strange about this power-up, though, is the name. Kuribo is the Japanese word for Goomba, but for whatever reason, it was left untranslated in the English release of Super Mario Bros. 3. The magazine Nintendo Power even referred to the enemy jumping around in the shoe as Kuribo's Goomba, which essentially means Goomba's Goomba. I'm willing to say pretty big mistake there, guys. And we're not done with weird translation goofs either, because they're all over the place in Super Mario Land, especially when it comes to the names of the enemies. Sarasa Land already feels foreign compared to the Mushroom Kingdom, with its use of monuments from real-world locations like Egypt and Easter Island. For players who don't speak Japanese, the land comes off as even more exotic, as its many unique enemies and bosses had their names left untranslated in the instruction manual. This even applies to the familiar piranha plant, here referred to by its Japanese name, the Pakkun flower. We can't tell if this was a case of the localizers just being clever or lazy. Moving ahead to Super Mario World, there's one weird little mechanical quirk you may not have been aware of. While it doesn't seem like it at first, you can actually replay castles after you've cleared them by pressing the L and R buttons at the same time when standing on top of them on the world map. While this might be useful for racking up extra lives or for practicing those levels for speedrunning purposes, this tip makes the list here for its total lack of logical sense. Every time you defeat one of the Koopalings, a cutscene plays showing Mario destroying their castle, and yet somehow you can re-enter these castles if you know the right button input. Demolition must just not be the plumber's strong suit, which to be fair makes sense. While we're on the subject of castles, we've got to take this opportunity to call attention to the biggest open secret of Super Mario Land 2. Mario owns a castle. Not only that, it seems as though the plumber's been hoarding enough coins to own an entire island, with attractions like a gigantic mechanized statue of himself. Where Mario found the time to build up such a nest egg is beyond us, and it was apparently beyond the developers too, because later games show him residing in a much more humble abode. Still, it really says something about the off-the-walls zaniness of the franchise that we were told that Mario got his castle stolen from him by a jealous doppelganger, and we all just went with it. Typically, when we think of Mario in a castle, something like Super Mario 64 is more likely to spring to mind, as this game makes use of Princess Peach's castle as the hub world for the plumber's first ever 3D outing. Super Mario 64 also marks another weird first for the man in red. Namely, it's the first time he's ever seen in a game without his cap. There are several ways that Mario can lose his trademark headgear, like being blown off a ledge by an angry snowman or being attacked by a vulture aptly named Klepto. This isn't merely a visual change either. Mario takes more damage when he's missing his cap, and if he collects a star without retrieving it, he'll have to return to the level if he wants his cap back. Mario's just not the same without his iconic red hat, but who knew it also gave him bonus armor? Fittingly, for a game more eager to shake up the Mario formula, Super Mario Sunshine comes with an abundance of odd little features and details. One that stumped players for years is the hidden door and book found in episode 3 of Noki Bay. This episode is already one of the strangest in the game, as it opens with the Noki Elder shrinking Mario and dropping him inside a bottle filled with water to collect coins. At the bottom of the bottle is a structure built out of sand, which contains an alcove ending in a door. Mario can't interact with the door, but by maneuvering the camera, the player can make out a book lying on the floor just beyond it. Was this book part of the episode's objective in an earlier stage of the game's development? The world may never know. Kicking off the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series with the DS game of the same name. We can't help but be surprised at the origins of the Mega Mushroom. You'd think that a mushroom that turns Mario into a giant would have been a no-brainer. The plumber's only been chowing down on them to grow big and strong since 1985, after all. New Super Mario Bros. Marks the first appearance of the surprising Mega Mushroom in the main series. It even shows off the power-up on its box art. But it turns out that this wasn't the first Mario game to come up with the idea. Mario Party 4 introduced Mega Mushrooms 4 years earlier, allowing players to get big and squash everything and everyone in their path. It looks like this new platformer was copying its homework from one of its spin-offs when it came to designing its signature power-up, but who even noticed? Speaking of copying, Super Mario Galaxy may have creatively lifted a bit of abandoned content from its 3D predecessor. Mario can again come across a mysterious door in the Good Egg Galaxy, but unlike in Super Mario Sunshine, this one can be interacted with for some basic gameplay advice. What makes this otherwise staple tutorial feature weird, however, is how the developers implemented it. The door itself isn't what Mario is reading. Instead, there's a sign hidden behind the door that can be read like any other sign when the plumber gets close enough. Crafty use of assets there, developers. Onto new Super Mario Bros. Wii. Now we're back to looking out for rare sightings of Mario without his cap. In this game, the man in red will remove his hat on both the world map and in levels if your life counter maxes out at 99. Beware though, if your number of lives ever dips below 99, he'll put the cap right back on. What's extra weird about this Easter egg is that it applies only to Mario, as neither Luigi nor the two Toads that can join them on their adventures will take their hats off. Alright, with the Toads, we can kind of understand. It's probably better to not think about what might be hiding under their mushroom caps. But Luigi? There's no reason he shouldn't have been able to join in on the hatless fun. Seeing Nintendo's mascot take off his hat may be weird, but it's not exactly mysterious nor thrilling. Well, hold on to your own hats, because the Shiver Burn Galaxy silhouettes of Super Mario Galaxy 2 more than fit that bill. Off in the distance of this level, the player can make out a number of shadowy figures with hollow eyes standing high on a cliff. Because they belong to the Galaxy's sky model, they'll appear to follow Mario. While only 3 silhouettes appear in the game, a look at the game's code reveals that there are in fact 4 of them, with the 4th obscured by the cliff geometry. These creepy figures crop up again in the Polestar area of Grandmaster Galaxy, which uses the same background as Shiverburn Galaxy. Fittingly, for a site so weird and disturbing, the internet's since turned these silhouettes into a creepypasta. With the internal name of Shiverburn Galaxy being Beyond Hell Valley, the development team was just asking for that to happen. Moving on to a less disturbing addition, Super Mario 3D Land contains an extensive homage to The Legend of Zelda in honor of its 25th anniversary. This was back in 2011 after all. World 5-2 is played from an overhead perspective, like the dungeons in 2D Zelda games, and one of its star medals requires the player to light torches as a nod to classic Zelda puzzle design. The developers claimed that they originally wanted this stage to be World 2-5 to make the shout out even more obvious, but they determined that would have been too early in the game for the level difficulty they were aiming for. Link's already done some occasional 2D platforming in Link's Awakening and other games, so it's cool to see Mario taking a turn at dungeon crawling in exchange. Looking back to the Plumber Zone games, new Super Mario Bros. 2 shines a spotlight on one of the simplest and most often overlooked elements of this series' gameplay: coins. Everyone who's played this game knows that this entry is all about coins, but what's extra remarkable is the massive coin counter. New Super Mario Bros. 2 tops out at 9,999,999 coins, the most of any game in the series, by far. If you somehow hit this limit, you're rewarded with a screen marking your achievement, as well as an altered title screen and intro sequence showing off just how loaded you are. We would think that you've earned a little more than that with all the time and dedication you need to earn 10 million coins. If Mario didn't already own a castle of his own, we'd say that the game should have at least given him the Luigi's Mansion treatment and converted all that cold hard cash into a deluxe new pad. So far we've looked at glitches, Easter eggs, crazy expansions on basic concepts like the coin counter, but sometimes it's in the unused content where Mario games can get the weirdest. Take for example the role of Mies in New Super Mario Bros. U. This title initially debuted as a tech experiment at E3 in the form of a demo based on New Super Mario Bros. Wii, only with new levels and the option to use Mies as playable characters. This demo would later be expanded upon to create the game as we know it today, but strangely, Mies aren't usable in the main story of New Super Mario Bros. U. Early builds show that they were intended to be included, but for whatever reason, Mies were restricted to bonus modes in the final product. This is also the case for the deluxe version that later released for the Switch. It's kind of a shame, I think. If there's any platformer that could have pulled off a goofy, customizable avatar as a controllable character, it would definitely be Mario. Much like its predecessor 3D Land, Super Mario 3D World went all out to commemorate an anniversary. In this case, Nintendo's Year of Luigi. 8-bit Luigi sprites can be found throughout the game, similar to New Super Luigi U. However, unlike in that game, Luigi's can be found on the world maps as well as in individual stages. Many of these Luigi sightings are easy to spot, but some are trickier. Special shout out goes to World 3-3 3 Shifty Boo Mansion, where you need to collect all 6 clocks found in the level and then wait at the goalpost until there are only 12 seconds left on the timer. A group of Luigis will then rise from the graves in the background, providing an appropriately creepy capstone to this ghost house level. But that's a ghost house for you. You expect it to be unsettling. Sometimes, though, the weirdest things of all are hidden right in plain sight. Case in point, the humans of New Donk City in Super Mario Odyssey. These perfectly ordinary looking people stand head and shoulders above Mario, and they sport more serious, realistic appearances compared to any of the residents of the Mushroom Kingdom. Even Pauline, the mayor of New Donk City, looks distinctly bright and cartoony when compared to any of her constituents. This begs a horrifying existential question. If the residents of the Metro Kingdom are the humans in this universe, what does that make Mario and friends? Has the world's most famous plumber been some kind of fantasy creature or bizarrely human-like alien this entire time? Then again, it is just like Nintendo to drop realistic humans into a game without any kind of comment on how weird this all is. It only adds to the surrealism that the Mario franchise has always been known for. Let's finish things off with something lighter though, the Giga Mushroom. Bowser's Fury, the brand new campaign added to the Switch port of Super Mario 3D World, is by itself a radical departure from the typical Mario gameplay with its more open world design. The central mechanic revolves around collecting cat shines to power up Mario so that he can take on the rampaging Fury Bowser. What might be most surprising is that the unused files in this game's code indicate that the main power-ups of Bowser's Fury weren't always intended to be cat-themed. The never-before-seen Giga Mushroom appears to have been both an expansion on the earlier Mega Mushroom and a beta version of the Giga Cat Mario that we see in the final game. With this mushroom, Mario grows to be the same colossal size as when he's fighting Fury Bowser. It's obvious that this item wasn't implemented fully, however, because the camera doesn't zoom out, leaving only Mario's legs in frame. The coolest feature of the Giga Mushroom may be that, unlike the Mega Mushroom in earlier titles, it can be combined with other power-ups for interesting results. Mario can even switch between different power-up forms like Boomerang and Tanuki while he's gigantic, further setting this power-up apart from Giga Cat Mario. We can't tell what's weirder though, that over 30 years later, Nintendo is still finding interesting new ways of supersizing Mario, or that the developers cut out such a versatile power-up. Let's wrap this up with the most recent Mario game that just so happens to also be the weirdest, and that's because it actually leans into the theme of psychedelic drugs. You know that haha Mario does mushrooms joke that's been made a gajillion times?
Oh my god, that is funny!
The fact that Nintendo just took the drug undertones and leaned into them is absolutely wild. Wonder Flowers introduce mind-bending reality changes. These sequences vary from whimsical to terrifying, warping reality in ways reminiscent of hallucinatory experiences associated with psychoactive drug use. Thanks, Nintendo, for being our shaman leading us through this crazy trip.